Video on the one lost abandoned buckets. I'm a little under the weather, so my apologies for sounding a little gruff. But essentially, when you're in your opportunities view, the pipeline view, and you grab an opportunity tile and start to move it, you'll see these three buckets appear: lost, abandoned, and won. And those are what we call the opportunity status. So if you open up a tile and you scroll down to status, you'll see that by default it's open. And if you click it, you'll see the other three possible statuses right there. So these buckets are important and useful in a couple of different ways. The first is for the ultimate goal, which is closing leads, right? So if we go back to our dashboard and we look at the final stage is one. And this is obviously the ultimate goal, right? So this triggers from that opportunity status. So there are a couple of ways to make sure that our opportunities that get closed are marked as one, so that your reporting shows, the ultimate goal of how many leads you closed. And so one of the ways is to train your clients to drag opportunities down into one as they win them. Or the other is to build a trigger that says, hey, when the status changes from booking confirmed, when the stage of the pipeline changes from booking confirmed to services sold, or whatever your final column is, mark that opportunity as one. And so this leads me to the second sort of usefulness of these, which is to keep your pipeline visually clean. So when you change the status, it's going to feel like it removes that opportunity from the pipeline. But really that's just because by default, the view of your pipeline here is open. So for example, let's say Beyonce requested a booking, but then nobody ever heard from her again. They contacted her 10 times, she stopped responding. So let's say we drag that down to abandoned. You can see it got a tag here of abandoned, and if I hit refresh, or the next time I would come back to my pipeline, I'm not gonna see her anymore. And that's nice because you don't want dead, quote unquote, leads to pile up in the pipeline, but you do want to be able to see where everybody ended up. So you can come back up here to the view and change this to all, and I'll see Beyonce here and many more over here. She got this far before she abandoned. And so what I like to do is, a lot of people don't have like a new leads column here. I like that. I like to show clients, hey, look at all the leads that we're generating for you, no matter what happens to them. And, in the agency world that I used to work in, we would say, hey, there's no such thing as a lost lead. So like we wouldn't use this lost very often unless it was somebody who, I don't know, for some reason told us never to contact them again or something like that. We would use the abandoned. So we would say, hey, none of these leads are either won or lost right off the bat. It's either we close them right away or we nurture them for a year or longer and we'll close them down the road. And so what we would always do is have three campaigns. One is the initial nurture, right? So they claimed an offer, now they're gonna get into a campaign. It's gonna send them texts, emails, voicemails, all that to try to close them into a booking, let's say. The second campaign we would call not yet ready. And that all it does, and you'll see this in the default claim booking snapshot, that campaign, if I go over here to campaigns, the not yet ready campaign is just a wait step. It's just a placeholder basically, because what we do with trigger number 5 here, move myself, is we say, hey, in that first campaign, and I might as well, let me show you this so it makes sense. In the initial campaign, we set the next campaign as not yet ready. So anybody who goes through the first automation and doesn't reply to anything, they're gonna flow into the not yet ready campaign by default automatically. And then with trigger number 5, what we do is we say, hey, anybody who hits the not yet ready campaign, let's do a couple of things. Let's add an opportunity in the same pipeline. So we're just basically overwriting the initial opportunity, but we're changing the status to abandoned. So that's going to visually pull that lead out of the pipeline, which is good because we don't want hundreds of thousands of leads stacking up in the new lead category, because your client at some point get, what's going on with all these people that are just sitting here. So that will visually pull them out. You can tag them here, And then what I would recommend is to have a long-term nurture campaign that maybe sends an email every month or every 2 weeks or something like that. And I would add that action here. So I would say, add to campaign, and I would select long-term nurture or whatever I want to call it. So every time somebody flows through the initial campaign, doesn't reply to anything, we have not yet ready set. That's just a wait step because we use that wait step to trigger here. And we're saying, hey, if anybody hits that not yet ready campaign, we want to tag them as abandoned, remove them from the pipeline visually, right? We can always change the view if we want to see them. And then feed them into the long-term nurture campaign. So that's how I like to use those 3 buckets. And again, you can use status over here on this side of a trigger or over here. So there's a lot of things that you can do with them, but in general, I think those are the most common use cases and the most common things to understand about the buckets that hopefully helps you out.